So I thought today I would talk a little bit about how to answer the question of why did I end up living in my car? To answer that question, I would need to go back a few years prior to living in my car to kind of explain what was going on at the time. It's kind of the sort of thing where it's like I had my own place and then I ended up dating someone and we moved in together. When you go into a relationship, you kind of expect it to last forever. If the relationship did not work out, then I would, of course, have to move out because it was their home and not mine. So then the relationship didn't work out, and I decided I was going to move out. The only problem was the job that I had, I pretty much only had that job because he had kind of hooked that job up for me. So I knew that it would be very awkward working at that job, continuing to work there with all his friends. I know sometimes in a breakup, it seems like, his friends are going to stay his friends and my friends are going to stay my friends. I thought that it would be best if I also quit the job. So not only was I not going to have a place to live, but I was also not going to have a job. And during this time, I had a friend and I kind of told my friend what was going on, that the relationship wasn't working out and that I didn't know what I was gonna do. My friend said that he traveled a lot for work. He said he's hardly ever home. He said, why don't you just stay at my place? Because I'm, always out of town. So at least you could be watching the house for me and checking the mail and that sort of thing. So it's like, okay, I'll do that. And he was right. He would be gone for 2 weeks at a time for his job and then come home for one day and then be gone again for 2 weeks. So it was really like having the place all to myself. But I also still need to pay him rent to stay there. So I was kind of doing odd jobs, some of which I've talked about in my previous videos. But basically I was kind of just doing part-time jobs here and there to try to make some money to pay my friend while I stayed at his place, while I try to figure out my life, I don't know if you call it a midlife crisis, but yeah, trying to figure out my life, what I was gonna do, where I was gonna live, try to find a place of my own. And sometimes life kind of makes decisions for you. You get shoved or pushed into a direction that maybe you didn't plan on going. So that's kind of what ended up happening is now I had no ties. I could have gone anywhere. I could have moved anywhere, could have taken a job anywhere. Nothing was holding me down at that point. My name wasn't on any lease. I didn't have any commitments. So that was when I started just applying for jobs all over the place. Meaning I was applying for jobs in Las Vegas, I was applying for jobs in Oregon, I was just applying anywhere I could find a job. Anyone that was hiring, I was willing to travel. I was willing to pack up and start a new life somewhere else. And so that's a little backstory of kind of what was going on. Because at that time, like I said, I was living in Arizona. And for those that have watched my videos before, basically moved from Arizona to Washington. But that's not exactly the whole story. There's one little stop in between. So the person's whose house I lived at, basically his business or his job was going to be relocating him to an area of California. And so that meant the lease where I was actually staying at his place was going to be up. So it was kind of a sense of urgency that now I really needed to find a place to live because I couldn't stay there anymore. And so he was talking about how his job was maybe had some openings. And so he suggested that I apply for jobs in California. And then that way, when he got a place in California, that I could live with him there as well, which is okay. I mean, that's really a big jump, starting a whole new life. And now I'm gonna have a job all lined up, maybe, I'm not sure, maybe they could get me a job. But then that's what ended up happening is I basically went out there to go stay with him to apply for jobs, do job interviews. And that place was called Solvang, California. And I don't know if you're familiar with that place, Solvang. It's a very interesting city. And I'll probably attach some photos here in the video so you can get an idea of what the city looks like, what it's known for. Very interesting, very quaint, small town. But let's just say that in the process of me applying for a job, of working at the same company as him and now gonna live with him and all that, one of the jobs that I had applied for in Washington actually contacted me. From before when I was applying to all these places in Oregon and Las Vegas and California. So when the job in Washington contacted me and said, can you start? And they gave me a date a month away from when they called me would be the start date, so that would give me plenty of time to relocate. I jumped at the chance. Sure, I would love to take this opportunity. I would love to move to Washington. I would love to, start a new life. And most of all, I was just happy that I had something solid, something to look forward to, a real job offer, and that it would be in Washington, which I knew very little about Washington, but I knew that I would no longer be living in the Arizona desert where it's 120 degrees in the summertime. On a cool day, it's 115. And at nighttime it's 105. I was so happy to move to Washington. But like I said, one problem. I did not have anywhere to live in Washington. But in my mind, I was like, I'm just gonna move there. I'll figure it all out. I'll get my job, get that paycheck, and I'll figure it all out. What did figure it all out mean? I mean, like I thought maybe I could stay in hotels. I'll just sleep in my car. Whatever I have to do to just make it work. So I took the job. I started the job. And as far as finding a place to live, I continued living in my car for like 6 months, because as far as figuring it all out and trying to find a place to live and the day-to-day of like, you know what, I'll just sleep in my car because it's a lot easier to do that, meaning it's a lot cheaper to do that. It's a lot more affordable to do that. And that's what I did. And that was kind of like my new life. And of course I had to learn the job. I had to make new friends in a new city, join a dating scene, learn where all the hangouts were, try to find things to do for entertainment. I mean, it was all brand new to me. And that's kind of what starting a new life is all about. Living in a new city is all about. There's a lot of excitement that comes with that. And that was kind of the whole thing, that when I first moved to Washington, of course it kind of felt like I'm on vacation, that on vacation feeling. And then there's kind of always this like sense of dread that you're eventually gonna have to go back home. But I felt the I'm on vacation feeling. I'm in a new place. I'm exploring. I'm like meeting new people. I'm having fun. And that's what it was like. And then there was never that dread of I have to go back home, or I have to go back to Arizona, where I hate Arizona. I hate the hot weather. I was loving Washington. I was embracing the fact that there's green trees, that there's rain, that there were all these things that Arizona just didn't have. And so I was happy. And I started my new life, and it was probably the greatest thing that I've ever done. I've enjoyed every minute of it. And yeah, I was living in my car, but I was enjoying every minute of it. That's what's great about starting your life brand new and getting excited about something. Yeah, even if I had to live in my car, I was all 100% on board with this new experience. And I am so grateful that I did. So grateful. It's every day. It's like it's now been 9 years that I've lived in Washington, and I love every minute of it. And there's still always something brand new to do that I've never done before, because when I lived in Arizona, I felt like I'd already done everything there is to do. I've already seen everything there is to see, been everywhere there is to be. And now Washington is like a whole brand new thing for me to experience. And I love it, and it's great. And if you ever get an opportunity, branch out and explore and live life that is something you've never done before, and explore something you've never done before, I definitely encourage it. Because I think there's probably people out there watching this that are maybe like afraid to make that leap in life and afraid to make such a drastic change. But I mean, it was the greatest thing that I'd ever done. Greatest thing. Solvang was nice. I liked it there too. But I'm very grateful that I live in Washington now. I absolutely love it every single day. It's amazing.